what does a good first session look like? A client has decided to hire you. You're excited. That's great. What do you do? First session. Well, I'm going to assume that you've already had some of the conversation with this person during the sales process about what coaching is and what they should expect and those kinds of things. If not, certainly go over the agreement during that first session. But I'm going to assume that you've already done that. I know I do that, as part of the ramp up to the first session. And so I just want to describe to you what I do in my first session. Doesn't mean this is the best thing or it's what you should do. But the question isn't what's the best thing or what should you do? It's just, hey, what does a good first session look like? And I came across this probably 2007, 2008, and I've been using it ever since. And by the way, I'm not that kind of personality. I tend to want to find new things, different, better ways. But this is what I have found really works. And so I've stuck with it for sort of a template to my first session. And so in my first sessions, I ask a series of questions. The first question is, what's your story? And sometimes I'll give a little bit of a description there. I'll say, just take 5 to 15 minutes and tell me about your life. Where are you in life? How'd you get here? And now, if a person shares for 15, 20 minutes, sometimes even more, obviously there's some back and forth clarification questions that go on. There are comments I make, that kind of thing. But the big question is, I want to hear, and I want the client to hear their story. Where are they from? What's happened in their life? What have been some of the significant things that have shaped them and some of the significant not only experiences, but achievements in their life? And again, for some people, they share their story in 5 minutes. I've had other clients that they take 45 minutes. And sometimes you got to kind of rein them in a little bit if you only have a 1-hour session. But that's the first question. What's your story? The second question I ask is, what are your strengths? What has helped you make progress in your story? And there I'm looking for things like talents, skills, character traits, things about maybe, their personality that's different from somebody else. Sometimes people will talk about relationships as strengths that have helped them make progress in their story. It's really kind of a wide open thing, but I really want the client to kind of brag on him or herself with that question. And of course, just like with the story question, there can be some clarification questions and conversation as a part of that. So what's your story? What are your strengths? And then the follow-up is sort of the flip side of the coin. And that is, what have been your struggles? What are some of the weaknesses that have slowed you down or detoured you from making progress in your story? I'm a recovering Baptist pastor, so I don't use the word weaknesses because I want the first 3 things all start with the letter S for some reason: story, strengths, and struggles. But you can choose a different way to ask that question if you want to. This is oftentimes where you're beginning to explore some of the gaps that are happening for the client, some of the things they wish were different about them. And of course, you're going to want to make notes on all of this. But some of the weaknesses, some of the struggles that they share could become fodder for future coaching conversations, future things to focus on. The fourth question I ask is, who are your heroes? Who are the people that you've admired? And what is it about them that you've admired? This question is the one that tends to stump people the most. They really haven't thought about it before. And so both to help them think and to give them a little bit of time to think, sometimes I'll point them in some directions. I'll say, these could be people and have spent a lot of time with, like family or neighbors or, teachers, people like that. Could also be famous people you've never met, but you've admired them from a distance, people from history or people from popular culture or whatever. Could also be fictitious people. There are characters in a book or a movie that you've really admired. You're like, oh, that's the kind of person I want to be, or there's something about that person that I want in my life. And then it could also be, of course, somebody from faith. And so if it's a person of faith and they're familiar with Scripture, it could be a person from Scripture. So I maybe give them those categories in terms of like helping them think, well, where am I looking for these people that I've admired? Some people also struggle or they get tripped up with the word heroes. I like the word heroes. Sometimes the client, is unsettled by that. And that's why I'll just say, if these are people you've admired, and what I'm really interested in is what have you admired about them? And my sort of theology or philosophy of this is we admire the people we want to be like. Now, we may not want to be like everything about that person. One of my heroes is Winston Churchill. I don't admire his ability to drink massive amounts of alcohol. I admire his ability to communicate with passion and vigor. And so that's something I want in my life. That's why he's one of my heroes. Well, you're looking for that kind of thing from your clients. What's the trait? What's the experience? What is it about the person they admire? And then they're going to want to apply that to their own life. The next question I ask, and all of this, of course, starts to kind of vary according to how much time we have in the conversation. But I ask, what's the next chapter of your life look like? Or what do you want it to look like? What's next for you? There's some question related to where they going next. And of course, that's beginning to really set up the coaching relationship that we have, and where we might go with the coaching. And then the final question, as time permits, I'm going to ask them, what have they been reminded of today that they want to be sure to hold on to, especially as they talk about their story and their heroes and those kinds of things. A lot of times it surfaces for someone something that they have maybe known, but put kind of in the back corner of their mind, and they want to keep it out front and center. Time permitting, we may do a mini small coaching session on that thing that they want to hold on to. I try to aim for that. I try to aim for having 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the conversation so that we can go into that thing that they want to hold on to and talk about that and have a coaching where they have some new awareness about it. They come to some action and they have a plan going forward. So, for example, I was coaching somebody last week and they said, I'm just reminded again how important family is to me. And I said, so what do you want to do to hold on to that and really, make that even more real for you? And what came up was a conversation with the client's daughter. He wanted to have a conversation with his daughter. He had felt some distance was beginning to happen between him and his daughter. And so we just had a very short conversation about him reaching out, him having the conversation. We designed that action. And what I like about that is the client is walking away with an action from what otherwise is an intake session. And so they're getting that taste of, coaching's about me coming to a new awareness and taking an action based on it. To wrap up the final thing I try to do to wrap up a first session is to remind them that the next session is not going to look like this one. So in the next session, they need to bring something to focus on. There's a topic that we want to address. Sometimes in the first session, they go ahead and tell me what they want to be coached on in the next session. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. If you're going to use a prep form to help your clients come to every session, now would be the time to introduce that prep form, or at least go over it with them if you've already introduced it, and just let them know what to expect going forward from future coaching conversations. So again, that's what I do in my first sessions. Everyone looks a little different, but I follow that template. Hopefully that template is helpful for you in your coaching journey. Hey, thanks for being here for this video today. We'll see you next time.
Be sure and subscribe so you don't miss any of our great content.